Muted myself there. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here today. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so you can subscribe to me there. I'm also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me on the JB Show on Sundays at 1. You can also find me on RBN Live on Tuesdays at 4, and the Sabby and JB Show on Thursdays at 6. Thank you so much to everyone for coming in today. Thank you to the subscribers, members, patrons on Coffee and Patreon, and anybody who supports me whatsoever. Thank you to all of you who are constantly watching me. It's a privilege to be here. If you have not already, then make sure to subscribe to my Patreon or my Coffee. If you guys would like to, you guys can be able to do that. And thanks to all the patrons on Patreon as well. Please also make sure to subscribe to my Substack for notifications. You guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can get notifications as well. And as well as all that, you guys can also please make sure to like the stream as well. I appreciate that because that also pushes me out into the algorithm. Now, this is going to be a taping, so of course I do not have anybody inside the chat to say hello to, but I also do have a guest, and I would like to introduce my guest right now because I really want to get into our conversation. Introducing Mr. Carl Zha. He is a podcaster and commentator in all things geopolitical, and I am very happy to have you here, Mr. Zha.
Thank you, James. Thank you for inviting me.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you as first, of many questions, and this is kind of a little bit more of a background information to people who may not know you or your work, because, we have some cross-pollination of audiences, but I would like to, for those who don't know, can you give us a bit of a background and what major event helped shape you regarding your ideology?
Oh, thank you. So I was born in China back in 1976, 1 month after Mao died. So I'm the first post-cultural revolution generation that grew up in China. I spent my formative years, my first 13 years of my life in China. I went to school there. And after... I was in China in 1989 during the Tiananmen Square protest, and I came to you. Yes, my dad was already in U.S. Since 1985 because he was the first generation of Chinese students who came to U.S. after Cultural Revolution to study abroad. That's when Deng Xiaoping said, let our students go learn the technology from the Western advanced economies. And if they don't come back, it's okay. But if they do, that will be a bonus. So my dad was that wave that came out. And in 1990, I came to United States as a 13-year-old. So I went to high school here. I did high school, college. And for the longest time, I thought of myself as I thought myself was a personification of American dream because look at me. Here I am, a poor immigrant boy. Because when I first came to U.S., my dad was working as a postgrad in University of Illinois at Chicago. And, he was making a pittance. Like I got free lunch at school. Right. So like we live we live in a working class neighborhood. And, I know what is it like to be poor in the United States. And so when I graduated, I was able to got accepted to Caltech, graduated, got a tech job. I thought, look at me, I am the personification of American dream, right? This is before I realized it's all the game is rigged. And my political transformation actually came around 2003. So a couple years after I joined the workforce, Iraq war happened. And I thought this is just insane. It's so this is like so obviously a war on trumped up charges. And yet the Congress, nobody stand up and said no. I mean, like this is at the time there were anti-war voices. I was in Chicago. I remember there was a big protest that shut down the main traffic along Lake Michigan. But it's almost seemed like the popular voice doesn't matter. The congressmen still voted to give the president authorization to go to war on
Yeah.
totally bogus grounds. And I thought the country was going insane. And that's when I start doubting my my own ideology. Previously I kind of subscribed to the neoliberal view of the world. I thought, okay, maybe Francis Fukuyama is right. This is the end of history. This is as good as it's gonna get. Back then in the back of my mind, I always thought, okay, this kind of sucks. If this is the ultimate evolution of human society, this is this sucks. This is very anticlimactic. But 2003 Iraq War was really eye-opening experience for me, and that's when I realized, this country which I had previously, I really believed in is built on lies. I mean, our politician. That's how our system works. Our system, so everything is built on lies. So I start questioning. I also used to read. I was when I was 16, I delivered New York Times. I was a newspaper boy for New York Times. So I developed a habit to read New York Times every day from 16 to until I was about 26. And what I noticed is that the reporting on China is total crap, because like the China that appear on the page of New York Times is a totally different country from the one I left behind. So I know that's crap, but I still believe what they say about the other country, for example, Russia, because I thought, okay, maybe it's just because Westerners don't get China. I thought, it's something unique about China the Westerners unable to comprehend. But then also around the time of the Iraq War, I got on the internet. I found this American expat magazine that was based in Moscow at the time, Exile. It was by Matt James and Matt Taibbi at the time, and from their writings, I realized, oh no, it's not just China. This is how the Western media report on almost every countries in the world, because they're banking on Americans' ignorance, because many Americans don't know the situation in Russia or China, so they just blindly accept what their foreign correspondents tell us. And Matt Taibbi described a situation where he, like every story, he has a template, and he basically have the story already written before he got on the plane to fly to Turkmenistan to interview his subject. He just need to fill in the names, and it was another eye-opening experience for me. That's when I realized the propaganda conducted at the corporate media level. This is something people don't realize. I mean, in countries like China and also former Soviet countries, they know what state media is, so they can by understanding the state media is a organ of the state, it's a mouthpiece of the state. They know how to read the news. Whereas in the United States and much of the Western world, people because they just take for granted that we have free media, so they accept whatever the so-called free media feed them. I mean, they can. A lot of the domestic stuff is a little bit better because we live in the United States, we can call out all the bullshit they print. But because for a lot of the foreign news, we don't have the reference, we don't have the context. Not many of us are have the money or the means to travel abroad to live in all these parts of the world. So a lot of times the only source of our information, unless we do our own research, came from those mainstream media, which just print out straight propaganda from U.S. State Department. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, plus you also have the language barrier. I mean, most of us here in the United States only speak one language. Yes. And so, for us to either speak Russian or Cantonese or Korean or, speaking Portuguese or anything like that, we just don't know what really is going on. And for instance, if you look at a Chinese newspaper, all you see is Chinese characteristics. You don't know what in the hell it says. So for you, you're just going to go by what the paper of record, like the New York Times says, or you're going to go by what CNN, MSNBC, or ABC News. You're going to go by what they say, and you're going to take it as fact.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you got me thinking, because I'm thinking like, why is a lot of the U.S. left types, they can see through the U.S. propaganda about Latin America, for example. They know like all this propaganda about Cuba, but yet at the same time they swallow line, hook, and sinker about what they report about China, right? And like
exactly.
And then people are like, we support the Cuban Revolution or the Bolivarian Revolution, but China is evil imperialist. Like, don't you even realize China is friends with Cuba and Venezuela? I mean, like, people don't make that connection in their head somehow. But I think it has to do with familiarity, because a lot of people know Latin America because it's geographically closer, it's culturally closer. We have a lot of the Latin American diaspora in the United States. So it's a lot easier for them to establish the connection. But I still find it weird. Like people they will see the U.S. is like this evil empire doing nasty things in Latin America, spreading a lot of disinformation, a lot of propaganda, but about the socialist countries. And then when it comes to China, somehow the critical meter just get turned off, and then they just regurgitate what was repeated on CNN, Wall Street Journals, New York Times, etc. So this is what prompted me to start my own podcast career, because I felt like I know China. I feel like I straddle two cultures. I spent 13 years in China, and I also grew up in the United States. So I felt like I'm almost, I felt almost obligated to explain China to people. Like what you hear in the mainstream news is crap. Let me give you some perspective as a Chinese person who was born in China and grew up in China and have relatives and friends in China, how it really is. So this is kind of my arc of development.
Yeah, and I think that is imperative for people to listen to others like you who really are from mainland China, who know the ins and outs, and don't go by what the stenographers for U.S. hegemony have to say. Because the thing is that you got to realize these are just the mouthpieces. And you need somebody who's on the outside that say, yeah, no, this is not how it is. I've been there. I know what it's like. And they're saying a whole bunch of BS. And I think that's what's important about voices like yours. And to my audience, I tell you, if you guys have not, then subscribe to Carl Josh's channel, because you guys need to get the perspective of what's really going on there. Because a lot of times people will go by, from the pandemic to the Uyghurs to all these different things that the United States will put out there. And it's like, well, are you talking to somebody who's actually from there, especially who is anti-imperialist, that is going to tell you what the real deal Holyfield is? They won't do that. And for instance, will they have you on at all on any of the, the national media?
Well, the Sky, does RT count? RT or Press TV? And I got on Sky News once. Sky News Australia. Nice. They didn't invite me back.
No, they won't. They won't.
Yeah, I mean, one part of it is a discrediting of the voices from those countries. Anytime you have someone, say, from China, who present a different view from that on mainstream media, they immediately get accused of being like CCP bots or the CCP. You're not even a real person. You're like just a bot. You're just an automaton regurgitating CCP propaganda, right? And this is it's part of the it's the one part of the propaganda is to dehumanize your enemy. right? They're not real humans. They don't have agency. They're not capable of thinking for themselves. They must be in my case, because I'm a Chinese, I must have a brain chip embedded in my head that I'm remotely controlled by Xi Jinping in Beijing, right?
Look, Carl, let me tell you this. And also, just to add to your point, they feel if they dehumanize you and you have no agency, then that means you don't have sovereignty. And this is one of the reasons why they're literally trying to ship people over to Taiwan to say, oh, well, we got to defend Taiwan from China. And I'm like, trying to defend Taiwan from China is like China saying we got to defend Florida from the United States.
And right? when United States itself still does not recognize Taiwan as an independent country. I mean, like even when the United States, if you go to the U.S. government site, you search for one China policy or Shanghai Communique, you will see back in 1972 when Nixon went over to China, he signed a joint statement with then Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai, which emphatically stated that United States recognized the Chinese on the both sides of the Taiwan Strait recognize there's only one China. And this is the Taiwan issue is an issue to be resolved among Chinese themselves, right? But it was the basis for the Sino-American relationship going on onwards. I mean, that led to China, mainland China, United States, for finally normalize diplomatic ties in 1979, and ever since. But what has happened in the last decades? The United States is trying to back away from its own one China policy, and it's trying to walk very close to the Chinese red line, because the Chinese have been very clear about what the red line is. They're like, if Taiwan declares formal independence, that is a red line. But what United States is doing is just like what they are doing did to Russia, with the NATO expansion after the dissolution of Soviet Union. On the Taiwan issue, they would just go right up against the line. It's like, I'm almost touched it. What you gonna do? It's like really childish and really stupid and really dangerous. I mean, like, it is. We're talking about two nuclear armed powers here, China and United States, and right now, United States have at least three nuclear powered aircraft carrier battle groups sailing around the coast of China, right? And even if United States do not plan a war, if some accident happened when all this military hardware floating around in such close proximity, it could lead to World War III. That's what happened back in 2001. A lot of people may not remember, but before 9/11, in the early part of 2001, Donald Rumsfeld authorized increased surveillance flight along the Chinese coast. Basically, he ordered more spy planes to buzz the Chinese coast, and that led to the Hainan spy plane incident, when a U.S. spy plane collided with a Chinese jet fighter, and then the U.S. spy plane was forced landed on Hainan Island. There was a big tension around that time, and at that time it almost looked like the U.S. and China are going down the wrong path. But then Osama bin Laden did, then 9/11 happened, and then U.S. interests got distracted elsewhere. U.S. decided to launch this genocidal, stupid war in Middle East for good 10, 15 years. And now they realize, oh my God, within this time, China has developed itself to be a quite powerful country, and now it's a near peer competitor, something we cannot allow, because United States always demands full spectrum dominance, right? And now they feel challenged, and now that's why we're seeing increasing provocation from United States around the Taiwan issue with China, because again, U.S. know where China's red line is. U.S. is trying to cross this red line by sending Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan on U.S. Air Force jet and with U.S. Air Force fighter escort. I mean, that's a very provocative move. But the Chinese, they played it cool. They did not shoot her down, to disappointment of many people. But they let her land. What they did is they wait for her to leave, and then they launched the military exercise around Taiwan, which hasn't happened for 20 years. The last time they did that was back in 1996. And that's also around the time when the last Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, visited Taiwan. So this time, just recently, the now current House Speaker McCarthy decided to meet with the Taiwan leader Tsai Ing-wen on U.S. soil. They knew it's a provocative move. They knew it will lead China to respond, which China did by launching another military exercise around Taiwan Strait. And then they point out to that, like, look, China is being aggressive. China is being aggressive, so we have to sell more weapons to Taiwan. U.S. congressman literally said we need to arm Taiwan to the teeth, to preserve peace. Like these people probably don't even listen to themselves talk. We have to arm Taiwan to the teeth to preserve the peace and stability. No, that's a highly destabilizing move. What you're doing. So go ahead, jump in anytime. I'm just ranting here.
Oh no, I mean there was I actually saw a video about exactly what you said. Gosh, it was about a week or so ago. And I found it to be hilarious because this guy was basically just going off and saying, we need to arm Taiwan. And I think somebody was speaking in front of the NRA, I think it was, if I'm correct. This guy was talking...
Vivek, one of the Republican presidential hopefuls. I think his name is Vivek Swamy, and it's funny. It's all these Republican candidates who have basically zero chance of being elected president. You have Vivek, you have Nikki Haley. Like they're all out competing with each other on who can be even more hawkish on China. And that goes with the congressmen and governors too. You have like the South Dakota governor. She said China has 2,000-year plan to destroy America. So apparently back 2,000 years ago in the Han Dynasty, China were plotting to destroy the future America in 2,000 years. And then Ted Cruz came out and he was being a moderate. He said, China has 1,000-year plan to destroy America. I mean, like, look, U.S. will be lucky if it still exists in 1,000 years.
Can we look at this and just laugh at this guy for a second? I really want to laugh at this guy. Because, just to give everybody a reference of what we're talking about. This, oh dear God, this is just hilarious. So let's just take a look.
Okay.
Our fathers, they knew what we were doing. We celebrate today our diversity and our differences. If we get this right, we can actually stand up to the real foreign policy threats that we face. You want China not to invade Taiwan? Here's something we can do. The NRA can open its branch next time in Taiwan. And you want to stop Xi Jinping from invading Taiwan? Put a gun in every Taiwanese household. Have them defend themselves. Let's see what Xi Jinping does then. That is what it means to be an actual American. Train them how to use guns, just like we did to black people in this country after the Civil War. Taiwan, we're coming for you. We're with you, Taiwan. Put a gun in every household. China ain't gonna do a peep. Xi Jinping got nothing on us.
And then
he was the one. Vivek was the one on was it CNN when he talked to Don Lemon? He said, "Yeah, it's the NRA that gave black people, help black people with civil rights by allow give black people guns." Like, this guy is nuts, man. Like these are our politicians. Like it looks like any loudmouth who can say anything with confidence gets voted into office. I mean, I don't know how to explain like this kind of, because there's like he's a dime a dozen among like both parties actually right now.
Yeah, like it is wild because this guy's talking about like how help, like we help black people. I'm sorry, is it oh, we have too many guns problems in Chicago, or is it or is it that we help people with with black people with getting guns? Like which one is it? Number one,
He actually claimed on the show with Don Lemon before Don Lemon got fired that it's NRA that was helping black people through civil rights movement by letting black people have guns. That's his claim.
Well, okay, let's take his claim at face value. If that was true, then why didn't they speak out against Ronald Reagan for implementing gun legislation, back in the 70s, or was it 60s or 70s? But he put in gun legislation in order to curb the use of guns in California when he was governor of California. That's what he did. And the only reason why he did it was because Black Panthers were walking around with rifles and exercising their Second Amendment right in the state of California. So if you are really against this gun legislation, then why didn't you speak out against Reagan when he was governor of California? But they didn't, because it was black people that had the guns.
Exactly.
And so for somebody like him to say that, number one, he doesn't know history. Either he doesn't know history, which is less nefarious, and he's just more ignorant, or he does know history and he's more nefarious and he's lying to everybody. And so that is the crazy part. And so it's like, and plus, we want to arm them like Americans, but Taiwanese people are not Americans, they're Chinese.
He's basically repeating the line from the Full Metal Jacket when the sergeant goes, inside every Gook's body, there's American dying to get out. I mean, that's what he's saying. This is basically this is the same mentality. This is the same mentality. I mean, like it's stretched all the way to the 60s. It's the same.
Oh my God. Yeah. And he said something to the end of, Xi Jinping ain't got nothing on us. Like, that's a black term that came out of a movie with Denzel Washington. Oh my God, they're crazy. They just are. But yeah, man, I wasn't expecting to go down that route, but that was hilarious. But thank you so much for reminding me of that.
Yeah, I mean, like all these. The funny thing is, there's no way in hell Vivek Ramaswamy is gonna get elected Republican primary candidate for presidency. But these people, they're doing their utmost to compete each other, say how crazy they are. I mean, it's almost like they must be signaling to their sponsors, right? Like, we are willing to say anything on TV. You can just give us money. We're willing to say any kind of insane shit to further our political careers.
Yeah. I'm switching around my questions just a little bit because we're still on the subject of China. But I would like for you to explain to people, because there's this thought says that the People's Republic of China is what they call state capitalist, and others say China is socialist. What is the real economic system in China, and why are many of us getting it wrong?
Okay, so first of all, first of all, it's really weird that like a lot of the people who live in the imperial core in United States are trying to judge whether what China is practicing is real socialism or not. I mean, like, think about the irony, right? What China did after 1978 is basically they said, okay, we will welcome market forces to enter our economy, but we're gonna make the market work for us, not the other way around. Which means, unlike United States, where the billionaires owns newspapers, where the billionaires owns think tanks, owns lobby groups, and billionaires effectively shape our policy. In China, yes, you can be a billionaire, but you cannot shape policy. Jack Ma is not going to be able to shape China's policy. I mean, that's why lately we're seeing all these newspaper show Wall Street Journal doing pearl clutching about, oh, what happened to Jack Ma? No, he's been silenced by the Chinese government. Oh my God, look at all these poor Chinese billionaires. They're getting screwed by Xi Jinping. It's like, look, China is not United States. You don't get to decide on policy just because you have tons of money. That's not how it works. In China, you can be a billionaire, but you have to work within the confine of the state. And at the moment you do something crazy, like for example, when Alibaba, they're trying to get into the financial sector, they're trying to get into the credit card, basically into the credit industry, they got the kibosh by the state, because they're like whoa we didn't authorize you to do that. So China is nothing like United States. I mean, they will allow market forces into China to utilize the market to build up the industrial capacity in China, which has happened in the last 30-40 years. Because at the time when I remember, because I was born in 1976, I lived in China in 1980s. Back then in 1980s, China was just effectively like any other developing nation, was exporting raw commodities. China was an oil exporter. People today probably wouldn't believe that, but China in the 1980s was a net oil exporter. China exported crude oil to places like Japan, but China did not have its own refining capability to refine crude oil into petroleum products like chemical fertilizer. So China had to export crude oil and import chemical fertilizers. You had to import everything from transistor radio to fertilizers to TV to refrigerator. Back in 1980s, nothing was made in China. Like I remember, like, my family were so happy when my dad sent money back from United States so we could buy like a Japanese made TV and Japanese made refrigerator. And this is not because we're non-patriotic Chinese. It's because back then in early 80s, Chinese factory didn't make color TV. They didn't make refrigerator. Chinese factory didn't make refrigerator until 1986. That's why in 1985 we have to get a Japanese-made refrigerator. So what has happened in the last 30 years is China, by attracting foreign capital, by building a world-class infrastructure and educating its population to be a very highly effective workforce, they have upgraded themselves. They have improved their skills. They climb. Oh, another thing about China. This is another thing a lot of the capitalists in the United States complaining about is technology transfer. Because the Chinese state said, if you are a Western firm, you come to China you want to do business in China, you have to share your technology. You have to, the technology transfer is a prerequisite for you to do business in China. And that is China's assertion of its own sovereignty, right? Okay. Because they're a sovereign country. They get to decide what goes inside their country. If you want to do business in China, fine, you have to follow the rule. You have to share their technology. And that's how China was able to climb the technology ladder. They were able to climb the value chain. I mean, back in 90s, China was making toys, and then later they start making laptops and cell phones. Like I said, before China didn't even make refrigerators, and later they're exporting refrigerator, exporting TV. This has all happened because China was able to harness the market forces, but made it work for China. I mean, that's something what United States should do, but the United States government doesn't do that because we don't believe in industrial policy. We need to let the free market run its course. But China does not believe in let free market run its course. They believe very much in having the state dictate where the resource should be deployed.
But you know what? It's funny because people will be like, well, the government shouldn't be dictating. I'm like, but what if everybody had an actual say in their government?
And
then there will be people saying what they want to have done within their country. But the thing is that here's the problem that a lot of Americans do not get into their heads. The fact that you do not have a say in an actual say in how your government operates means that it's being run by corporations and not you. So when it comes to actual market forces, it's not you that's dictating it. And people say, oh, well, you do it through your dollars, but not while you're doing it under duress. There's certain things that we just can't help but to pay for under duress. And if I'm correct, I forgot. I think it was somebody in the chat. Was it somebody in the chat? They were telling me, even when it comes to housing in China, I think the most you can spend on housing in China, I think, is 10%, if I'm correct.
So in China, this is the thing. In China, the household ownership of homes in China is like 80%, right? I mean, like here, American dream is all about being able to purchase your own house. But in China, they already achieved it. They already achieved the American dream. 80% of the Chinese household own their homes. I mean, and it just goes back to something you said earlier about, but we don't want to let the government, dictate everything. Well, you just let Jeff Bezos dictate everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like, oh, well, we have them taking it over through the means at which we want. And it's like, is it really what we want, or is it what the corporate dictators want? Because the thing is that, if you ask most of us here in the country, we don't want somebody like Jeff Bezos to have it all, and even people who wouldn't be on the left like myself, they would say, well, we want things to be more fair. And what is more fair? And to me, honestly, it would be us having an equal say in the government. And through that government apparatus, we dictate to corporations what we want as far as market forces. And I honestly think that that's the best way. But because, we don't have a say. I mean, look, speaking of a say, the Democratic Party just announced that they will not be sponsoring any debates. So when it comes to actual democracy in this country, they don't
want to make Biden look bad. I mean, the guy barely formed coherent sentences. I mean, like, it's just going to embarrass himself on stage. So right now, in United States, we have, I think people in U.S. actually realize there's something very seriously wrong with the system, right? Mm-hmm. But right now, all that anger and stress is being misdirected, because like now our Republicans will come and say, oh, it's all China's fault because look, China steal our technology, China steal our jobs. Look, China didn't come to United States and physically steal that factory and put it in China. No, it's Steve Jobs who decided he's going to build Apple. He's going to have Apples assembled in China. It's all these U.S. industrialists that has hollowed up the U.S. industrial capacity over the last 30, 40 years, since 1970s. And but instead of blaming these U.S. industrialists who owns our newspapers, who own all the lobby groups, who own the think tanks, who own our government and own our congressmen, it's a lot easier and politically expedient to say it's China's fault. Obviously, obviously it's China bad, right?
Yeah. But the problem is a lot of Americans, they have very short-term memory. Because if I remember correctly, wasn't it NAFTA that was signed by Bill Clinton that shipped a lot of our manufacturing over to China? Which, for the benefit of China, it actually helped build up their infrastructure and the economy. But it was to our disadvantage. But they did it because the corporate dictators were like, well, we want to make more money. Oh, they have over a billion people there. That means that's a billion more people that we can actually use in order to build ourselves up. And so they shot themselves in the foot. That's the problem. It's like it's like having a bountiful banquet of food and you eat it all at once instead of letting it stretch out. And so now, hours later, you're hungry, but all that food is gone because you ate it all.
Well, this is all U.S. is about. I mean, short-term thinking, because all the corporate CEOs, they look at the quarter earnings, right? Because that's going to reflect on the stock price. And our politicians, all they care about is the next election cycle. 2 years, 4 years, whatever. Who cares what happened after 5 years? They will be out of the office, right? I mean, so this is our system is fundamentally flawed by design. and this is where that's why they don't want you to even think about alternatives. That's why China have to be bad. China have to be bad because they what we have is as good as it's gonna get, guys. You can't change it. We got the best. We are the leading democracy of the world, guys. The leader of the free world. This is as good as it gets. Don't question us, but this is the end of history.
Well, for the United States.
Yeah, for the United States.
No, not for other.
And not even for United States, for the elite of the United States. I mean, what has the U.S. empire done for the average working class Americans? You get your job shipped abroad. You get and then you don't even get any service. The U.S. government is not reinvesting in education, so your children are not going to prepare for a better future. U.S. government is not reinvesting in infrastructure, so U.S. can, have a chance to build back up its, industrial capacity. So, but those things are hard, right? To educate, because these also require for long-term planning. I mean, when you talk about education, you won't see the results for another 10, 20 years. And as infrastructure, same thing. You're gonna but people here, they all care about the election cycles. They all care about the quarter earning reports. So that's beyond their time when they get their own share of the pie. In US, it's all about making money, right? if you can't make short-term money, might as well go home.
Yep. I have another question.
Sure.
And this goes into Bolivia. Recently, Bolivian President Luis Arce said that he wants to create a lithium OPEC to regulate and become an economic benefit he wants it to become an economic benefit to lithium producing nations similar to oil producing states. This comes on the heels of President AMLO calling for nationalization of the lithium in this country. What do you think is the West, particularly U.S. response will be regarding this move?
Well, Elon Musk openly announced it on Twitter. He said, "We will coup whoever we want," and so I mean, and this is Latin America, so U.S. quote unquote backyard, Monroe Doctrine and all that. We'll have to see. I mean, let's see. Let's. I mean, maybe U.S. but at this point, it's actually good time to test the U.S. hegemony, because at current time, the U.S. empire has been overstretched, by the war in Ukraine, which it supports, and now they're trying to start a second front war in in Taiwan with China, right? Because it's not enough they challenge one nuclear power, Russia. They must take on two nuclear power, Russia and China, at the same time. That's a genius at Washington at work. That this.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, we're gonna pull a gun on these people who have also big guns, but we're not gonna pull it just on one guy. We're gonna do it on two guys.
Yes.
Like, who's actually gonna win in that fight? And we know that the U.S. has a track record of infiltrating and causing coups and military interventions if they don't get their way, but will that be the same now that the global South knows the United States bag of geopolitical tricks?
I think it's good. It's going to be increasingly interesting, because today Argentina just announced they're going to trade with China in the Chinese currency, yuan. They're going to pay yuan for Chinese goods. So the U.S. empire stands on three legs, right? Military, technology, and financial. But ultimately, the U.S. military and its tech industry also depend on its financial leg. It's depending on the dollar hegemony. And this is because the deal United States worked out with Saudi Arabia back in 70s, that to price the oil in dollars. So everybody have to get dollars to pay for their energy. And that made US dollars the world's reserve currency. And this is why the United States Federal Reserve Chairman Neil Kashkari would say, the Federal Reserve have infinite money supply. They can just print. They're not even. Today, they're not even limited by the forest, the supply of trees anymore, because it's all digital. They can just literally add a zero, type in a bunch of zeros, and then but people are wising up to that. Other countries are wising up to it. That's why I think the kind of what got the snowball rolling was the U.S. sanction on Russia, and when U.S. froze the Russian sovereign. The Russian reserve, that's Russian money, and they just decided, I'm sorry, it's in dollars, we hold the dollars, you're not gonna have it. And then the other countries saw that as like, holy crap, this could happen to us. Why are we holding dollars again? And that starts the ball rolling. Then you get, next thing you know, Brazil is going to China, say, hey, well, let's trade in our local currencies, yuan and peso. And, Argentina now is coming on board. And Saudi Arabia, the originator of petrodollar, says they're gonna work out a deal to trade in yuan with oil with China, and China is Saudi Arabia's biggest customer. So. Yeah, the ball is like I just made a tweet, like a snarky tweet, just before the show. I said, "Hey, look, U.S. empire is backed by its over bloated military, which is backed by its dollar, right? and right now, looks like the dollar hegemony is crumbling, right? We're on the last leg of the U.S. empire here. So this is also why our elite, our ruling class, are going crazy. They want to like war all the time and everywhere, because they know their time is limited. Like, you have Marco Rubio openly said in front of the Capitol Hill, he said, right now the whole world is de-dollarizing, that if we don't do anything now, in 5 years, we won't be able to sanction anybody because they will not be using US dollars. He just basically admitted to the reason why he just listed the reason why people are getting rid of their dollars, because he allow US this is the tyranny of dollars. So, they can sanction anybody. well, what if we just don't hold dollars? We hold other currencies.
In fact, while you're saying that, let's actually hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Oh yes.
Mouth. Marco Rubio.
Little Marco.
Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them. Today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest.
You see how fast he's blinking his eyes? This guy's nervous.
He's in trouble.
Oh man,
Marco, blink twice if you're in trouble.
He's like,
No.
Brazil, de-dollarization. Oh my God.
Cuba. No. I want to go back to my great granddad's plantation.
Oh man. Yeah, it's always good to laugh at these clowns. I mean, like people always ask me, it's like, why, Carl? Why do you laugh so much? You distract from the message. I'm like, no, I have to laugh. This is like my self-defense mechanism. Like when we're ruled by crazies and other clowns, you have to laugh at their stupidity.
I fully am on board with laughing at neocons and war criminals. Clown them. Do that. Because that's the least we can do until we actually formulate a cohesive government that actually listens to the people so that we can actually put them on trial.
Yes. Guillotine.
Keep them sharp, baby. Keep them sharp. I have, man, I'm so glad I had you on. So there's another question that I have, and this is going on in the same vein. And as we see, BRICS is growing, and we see other nations joining. I reported a couple weeks back that Egypt is brushing up against the proverbial leg of BRICS to potentially become a member state. Saudi Arabia is becoming more friendly with China, and even French President Macron said that he doesn't want it to be, and I'm using my words, a lackey of the U.S. anymore. What move do you see from the international community, especially BRICS nations, and how they handle the U.S. potentially throwing a tantrum for losing their Western hegemony on the world stage?
I mean, people see the writing on the wall. I mean, Macron is a freaking poster boy of the neoliberalism in France. I mean, even he saw the writing on the wall that he has to go to China and say that Europe should not be a vassal to the United States, and that pissed off a lot of people. In the print, I was shocked. I was like, what's wrong with what he said? I mean, why should Europe be a vassal to the United States? And he actually said Europe should not get involved in the conflict over Taiwan for U.S. Exactly. What is it France or any European country's business what happened in Taiwan? It's like literally half world away from them. China posed no strategic threat to Europe. There's no dimension of even strategic competition. The most important relationship they have is trade. So why would they sabotage their trade with China for the sake of United States? I mean, basically, Germany, they already got killed by the sanction over Russia that they're forced to do. Russia is their base for raw energy, cheap, reliable energy, and China is their big market. So I mean, they're going to commit economic suicide if on top of the Russian sanctions, they're going to sanction China. Are you kidding me? They're sanctioning themselves. I mean, that's why all these German industrialists are now moving their factories from Germany to United States, and yet all the German bureaucrats, because they're so freaking what's the word? Cucked. And they can't say no to United States. They're witnessing the self-destruction of EU, and this is why even freaking Macron said, okay, let's not do that. Let's not go crazy,
He's like,
because
let cooler heads prevail.
yeah, exactly.
And then meanwhile, you have Germany going, they're like, wait, the United States just blew up our pipeline. What do we do? I don't know. What do you think we should do? I don't know. And so next thing you know, they're like, I guess we'll just die, I guess.
That's what German
like, hey man, you blew up a pipeline. What the hell's wrong with you? Instead, they acquiesce.
Yeah, I mean, most of the German leaders, the only reason they are where they're today is because they toe the line. Anytime all these so-called allies of United States that step out the line, they get smacked down. Henry Kissinger said, to be the friends of United States is dangerous, but to be its friend, to be the enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be friends is fatal. And that's Henry Kissinger himself on the horse mouth. and this is what's happening right now. U.S. is literally cannibalizing its own so-called partners. They're all because U.S. still have abundant natural resources like natural gas. That's why all the German industries are coming to U.S. right now. This is why U.S. is full on board of supporting Ukraine war, because the war is happening in Europe on the European soil, and the European economy is getting devastated, and the European capital and industry are fleeing for safety to United States. This is a U.S. plan. U.S. plan right now is just blow up the rest of the world, so all the money will come back to United States. I mean, this is, and U.S. claim to be the champion for stability, but
Yeah, that's a really great point. So I have like 3 more questions, but I just don't want to shoot over the time.
Let's do one more. Yeah.
Okay.
We
All
have
right.
time for one more.
So we'll skip the fun questions for another time. But
oh man, I was hoping for the fun question, but okay.
Oh, sorry. Like one of mine is serious, and then the other 2, one's like more of like a personal question, and then the other one's a fun question. But I just wanted to respectful of your time because we're close. We're approaching an hour.
Yeah.
But as you observe the U.S. left from outside of the empire, what do you see is the major issue with getting our feet off the ground to change the system, and what can be done to escalate positive changes outside the realm of electoral politics?
That is a great question. So yeah, I mean, I don't think electoral politics is a way to go. People have seen what happened to Bernie, right? I mean, there's no room for the two within the two-party system to effect the change from within. That is a dead end. Whoever that even appeared that be saying something different eventually get co-opted. I'm looking at you, AOC. But I mean, yeah, and like people, I think it's important for people to organize, both online and offline. Build your community, build your support groups, because at the end of the day, this is what all you're gonna get. This is the people that share your goals, share your ideals. Try to reach out to people who don't be a purist. Don't be a purist. The goal of politics, like Mao said, is you're trying to grow your camp as big as you can. Like you want to make your enemy's camp smaller and smaller. Their support group smaller and smaller. Your support base wider and wider. So reach out to people, organize both online, offline, and build your own community and invest in your own community. I mean, by investing, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about your time, devoting your energy. This is something I think people is more practical. Like for people, we live in humans are social animals. We need that We need that community, the camaraderie, sense of belonging. So go ahead and make it happen.
All right. Thank you so very much. That's it. The other questions I'll ask you next time. But yeah, but
I'll come back for the fun question next time.
Yeah, I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
But look, it was a pleasure having you. The answers that you were giving me really just satisfied a lot of what I was curious about. And of course, there's a lot more questions, regarding what's going on in the world that I would like to ask you as things go forward. So I just really want to say that it was an honor to have you on, and I appreciate you coming on to my tiny little channel.
Thank you for inviting me. I love to talk. Invite me back anytime. I want to. I still want to get to that fun question eventually.
Yeah. Look, I'm saving that. I'm not deleting it.
Yeah, I know.
But also, if you can give the audience a little information of where can they find you.
Okay, I'm a prolific shit poster, so if that's something you like, follow me on Twitter. But just my name, Carl ZHA, one word on that's my Twitter ID. And you can also find me on Facebook. I don't post there as much. I do have a podcast, the Silk and Steel podcast, where I talk about everything China, history, culture, politics. Most of my content are available on most of the podcasting platform. Whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, etc. But I do have a Patreon. So come support me on my Patreon, Silk and Steel podcast. Just go to Silk and go to patreon.com, search for Silk, and the first result will be my Silk and Steel podcast. That's how I support my lifestyle in Bali. So if you like my content, support me.
All right. And I'll make sure to put all those links in the description below. Thank you so much, Carl. It was a pleasure. And I hope you have a good night on the other side of the world.
Thank you very much, James.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that was a beautiful interview. I cannot wait to have Carl ZHA back. That was awesome conversation. And I actually feel smarter now that I got to hear, his perspective on what's going on, especially geopolitically. This is one of the reasons why I have people like him on. So thank you so very much for that. Just to let you guys know, if you guys have not yet, please make sure to like the stream because that pushes me out into the algorithm. Did you subscribe yet? This channel, we are very interactive and we try to, put out as much information as possible so that we get to the truth on different matters, either around the world or even here domestically. So if you guys have not, then please make sure to also subscribe. Turn that little red box to gray. Also, thank you so very much again to the patrons on Patreon and Coffee. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this type of work. Thank you also to the members. Yes, I also do memberships as well. And if you guys would like to as well, you guys can give any type of mutual aid via various platforms in the description below of each video and stream. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also go to my Substack for notifications. You guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys can get notifications for whenever I have clips or go live. You guys can get those there as well. And thank you so much to Carl ZHA for joining. And I cannot wait to have him back on. And I'm thinking of making this a regular thing. So thank you so very much to everyone. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat. If you guys giving out any super chats, thank you so very much for that as well. That is also very much appreciated. You guys are beautiful people. Also, just to let you guys know, I also will be doing the next reading for Assata Shakur's autobiography. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And so we'll be getting into that. And then also I will be venturing into chapter 2 of the book by Dr. Devon Price of Laziness Does Not Exist. So yes, we will be getting into that very shortly. So I cannot wait to discuss these books with you. So thank you so very much to everyone. And like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And learn more about what the United States says about the enemies. Are they really enemies? Are they really bad? Or is the United States just twisting it to make themselves look good? We got to think about these things. We actually have to, look at things from a more objective point of view, and also talk to subjects who are from places which are constantly demonized. Why are they? So, thank you so much. Mwah. Forehead kisses. I know you were waiting for that. You know I love giving those out. I give them out like free French fries on a holiday. Not freedom fries, French fries. Ho ho! French!